upbringing. Plus, basically by training, I'm a sociologist, by the way. But incidentally, I have been all along my life, 40 years in the management education. That is a turning point. And when I joined Administrative Staff College of Hyderabad in 1983, soon after I was pursuing my PhD at Bangalore with one of the renowned sociologists of the world, Professor M.N. Srinivas, who gave the concept of Sanskritization to the world and who wrote a lot about social change and all kind of issues of what has happened in India as far as, and Professor Yogendra Singh also was my teacher at JNU, who also wrote a seminal work on social stratification and change in India. These are the kind of, I'm saying this because those are the backdrop on which I have worked all along my life. I have never forgotten my roots. That I'm a sociologist by training, but I am a teacher in management education all along, and I have brought in that social perspective to the management education because that is what I felt is very important. Because now the whole world is talking about infusion of liberal arts and humanities into the management education. Whole globe is talking about, and which it did it in the long back. So when I was in Dean IMT Ghaziabad, we had MOU with several institutions. Currently, in fact, I was doing research when I wrote this book. I mean, when I started this book, but currently I am the Vice Chancellor of the same university, Jagran Lakecity University in Bhopal. So with effect from 22nd June, I've been designated as Vice Chancellor. But that does not take me away from my academic pursuit. Whether I'm a Vice Chancellor or Dean doesn't matter. What is important is that what I'm contributing for the society, that's important. That remains important for most of us who are present here. So when I was part of IMT Ghaziabad, we had MOU with several universities, good universities, triple crown like AACSB, Equis and AMBA and all that, essentially because I was from that kind of perspective. And then time it was a chance meeting with Dr. Robert, who is my co-editor in this book. And we wrote a few books. My previous work again with the Routledge is FDI outflow from Asia to Europe. Most of the people write what has come from European American to India and other countries, but we said no, we are also no less. We are also contributing to the economy of the Europe and other countries. So we wrote that book, and then we did write another book, edited, was on trade and investment in Europe and Asia. And that is kind of we did. This is the third book in the Routledge. And I proposed, and of course my co-editor Dr. Robert also agreed that a lot of we are talking about sustainable development, SDG 2030 agenda 2030 or sustainable development goals, and that's what when we're talking, then I said no, places which we inhabit must be livable. The places which we live, it must be livable. Look at what has happened in Delhi, for example. I was in Delhi for 3 years. I studied in Delhi. When I studied, of course, there was not much of a problem. But look at Delhi in the past few years, the pollution level is terribly high. And look at what happened, the recent floods in Delhi. Again, it was a failure on the urban planning, if I might say so. Look at what happened to the floods in Delhi. But there were 2 years back. What happened in Bangalore was devastating. Floods and all that. And then, of course, Mumbai is a regular feature. I don't know when our people will wake up to rectify these kind of issues. I really don't know. These are the kind of issues. Then I was thinking, when we're talking about sustainability, economic factors, social issues, and environmental issues must be taken together. And we must make why only cities? We should make our entire population should live in a citizen-friendly environment. What did the villagers have done? Nothing wrong. Why they should be denied for living a very good life, and nothing should be denied to them, the villages or towns or cities. But India has come out to this concept of smart city. Typically, we think focus on cities. That is unfortunate. I wish that we focus more on rural areas, village, but that is how India is. And smart city concept is not only new to India, not in India. I think Europe also talks about smart cities, and many other places we are talking about smart cities. Their condition and our conditions different. India is, of course, again, even today, I think more than 68% people still live in rural area. That is a different issue. I'll be talking in the next book when I'm writing something on that. We'll be discussing about that. But this book inspired us to look at, because I live in central India right now, though I have lived in Delhi, Chennai, Bangalore, Hyderabad, and all that. Central India, there is a city called Indore. It's just about 200 kilometers, 180 kilometers from Bhopal. That city has been rated as the cleanest city in the country for the 6th consecutive time. It's not a by chance or by accidental that a city can get that kind of award consecutively for that, and it has done extremely. Welcome, Robert. My co-editor has joined from Poland, Dr. Robert Biswas. He has just joined. So, Robert, I'm just explaining the background how we wrote this book. You can contribute whenever I look forward to. You can chip in with certain kind of your expertise from European perspective. You can chip in. Okay, so Indore got the award for the 6th consecutive time as a smart city. And incidentally, my daughter was with the Times of India, one of the leading newspaper of the country, and she was covering, how the citizens have become very aware and how they are all conscious on making their city clean and also livable and make it more friendly to the citizens, citizen-friendly cities. That is how. So we thought, given the concept of even agenda, sustainable development and all that, so the city management, city governance becomes crucial. Look at what has happened in Delhi. Political parties are blaming each other, forgetting that the governance is their key role. And they should have planned well to prevent this kind of floods which happened in Delhi. So that gives rise to us to think about, what can we do so that, the cities become livable and it is interesting. So that's why we thought, let's do something. What are the best practices involved in the management of smart cities? And that gave rise to writing this book. And then we thought, why not? I talked to Robert and he said that why not you write a case study on Indore? Then I said, yes, then let's do something about Europe, because he's based out of Poland. Warsaw also, they're developing the city in which he lives. Warsaw is also being developed, Warsaw city. So we thought that, basically we must assess what are the best standards, norms, best practices involved in managing a smart city. And whether such smart cities will provide or they provide impetus to the growth, economic growth. That is also important. Whether it also fosters business or not, that is important. And what are the determinant factors for such cities to grow? So basically, we have written from the macroeconomics perspective to management, to finance, to technology and public policy. Obviously, public policy is involved because, and that is how we thought, so what we have done in this book, we have taken examples from Iceland, Estonia, Poland, Germany, India, of course, obviously, Indonesia, Malaysia, Singapore, Vietnam, to name a few countries. What we have trying to see what are the kind of efforts are being in these cities and what are the best practices and why are doing so. Because when you talk about cities, smart cities concept, smart city is not only cleaner city or having some gadgets or something like that. I think the basic features of a smart city should be, basically, when we talk about smart cities, now it should be in terms of traffic, in terms of city transportation, in terms of security for the populated areas, in terms of preventive measures for disasters, which keep occurring from time to time in different parts of the world. It could be flood, it could be earthquake, it could be turnout, it could be anything. Or in addition, whether such kind of cities will enable its citizens to access all infrastructure. Access to infrastructure is also important, whether we are internet friendly. Are you able to provide access to internet? Because we are saying that now that we are global village, and what kind of technology, green technology. We have talked about hydrogen, green hydrogen in some of the cities, how they have replaced some of the case studies. I think I don't remember the name of the city, which is the part of this book, but we have talked about how green hydrogen has played an important role. Green technology is important because we also say that, and what are the obvious features of smart city? Innovation, creativity, and flexibility. I think flexibility is a hallmark of any good governance system. If you do not know, if our governance policies are not good, so that will be and also you are thinking of whether you are reducing the carbon emission. Are you aiming for carbon neutrality? And whether the efficiency has increased in terms of business or in terms of other, traffic, transportation, all the kind of things. So we are trying to analyze different kind of, we have done that analysis, different layers like macroeconomics, management, financial, technological, public policy, local authorities, governance by the local bodies, urban bodies, how they are planning, and other institutions which support such, and whether we, because of these kind of efforts, whether the investments have come to the cities or not, whether the business has increased or not, because these are also important features. So, say for example, our first chapter talks about why there is a need. We did a bibliometric assessment, where are such things are happening. So we took up China, India, Japan, where most frequently it happens, or Italy, Spain. I believe Professor Gilani, there is a professor from Italy also, Italy, Spain, UK, and all that. So what we did, we were trying to see, say for example, the chapter 2 describes about Estonia. It talks about green transformation, like a system of e-governance, and how the business school of that particular university, there is a business school, how they did a survey to find out what are the desire of these citizens in terms of green technology and how the green transformation taking place. Or in the case of, say, for example, another city of the capital city of Estonia, Tallinn, which is again, what is the concept of urban commons? Do we work collectively? Because you see, all these cleanliness or carbon neutrality or the systems of traffic will not happen only through the government intervention. Obviously, citizens have to be part of this process. They must be part of the governance structure. We have in India 3 layers of governance system structure, and we have to lend the voice to the local people. They must be part of the decision-making process. Unless we do that, how do you expect urban commons to be, as a collectivity, as an urban collectivity, we should be doing well or not? That's important. So that is an issue we have examined. How to co-create that existence, how to co-create that good living existence and the good living in the urban area. That is important. Another such thing we did it in, say, for example, Iceland. Reykjavik, for their capital, for example, green, how, and this I was talking that green hydrogen, and how they were, how to negate the effects of climate change in this particular area, and how the citizens rose up, and how to check the pollution and the fight the energy shortages. So that are the kind of another case study and all that. So we also did some kind of a compare. Now we have compared some of the major cities of Germany, for example, and how they have developed this concept of their COT project in Hamburg or Munich or Leipzig. These are good examples how. And look at in Poland what is happening there. Ukraine refugees are in Warsaw. They're fighting. Their economy is in tatters. Suddenly they have 1 million or some this kind of refugees have come. So they are fighting with this. How it has become a resilient smart city to tackle this kind of problem, also their economy. So those examples also have been given. And Indore, of course, I am very fond of, because how the better transportation, how the efficient water supply, how the water management system has improved. And that is how the citizens have become very conscious, and they're also contributing to the governance. That is very, very important. We have that municipal corporation, then there are local wards, small pockets of governance structures, and whether they are contributing or not, that become important. Then another colleague of us also analyzed the Asian nations and Indonesia, Malaysia, Vietnam, Singapore, China, and India, what is happening there, what the policymakers are doing, and how they are trying to introduce reforms to encourage increasing private investment for the infrastructure, right kind of infrastructure. Say, for example, I live in Bhopal. I can tell you straight away in last 5 years in Indore and Bhopal, the way the infrastructure development has taken place, it is really, really good. Good road network, good system of traffic, good system of disposal, waste disposal system, solid waste management. These are important to make a city livable. And we are trying to have public internet places. We are trying to install. There are certain kind of hubs in the city. You need not have to go to a what should I QSEC to no kiosk to do this. You can on the road you can access kind of thing. So that kind of smart systems should be brought in. People have smartphones. People have they're using a lot of smart gadgets. I'm talking about the urban. And in fact, in rural areas, India also smart city. I think India is going to the highest smartphone users in the world. And this is it's a necessary evil. Sometimes it's extremely good. Sometimes it's bad also. People are hooked up to WhatsApp, Google, Facebook and all that. There are different ways of, but it is up to us how to use the technology. It is up to us. It is up to us. And how do I, like when TV came, people said TV will spoil the education, but I don't think so, because it is us. What do you use and how do you regulate yourself? It is very, very important. Similarly, we also examined, say, for example, Dubai, the Middle East is a good example, and some of the issues are there. I mean, I'm not talking about cultural issues. I'm talking about a smart city. I'm talking about the cities as a livable city concept. So and then we also have talked about Korea and how in standard of living has increased, how citizens are contributing. Then another colleague of us from Mumbai University had done a comparative analysis of smart cities in India, because we have, as a project, we have taken 100 smart cities to be developed in India and how they are doing in different stages of time. So these I think give some kind of issues have been raised. We have analyzed certain kind of issues. So it is a kind of and it can be integrated to urban planning. Now, what we are trying to do is let these issues which have emerged from these case studies, and there are about so many, at least 4 or 5 nations involved in contributing to this book. And more than that, there might be 4 nations, but they might have covered our 10 or 12 countries issues. So we think that, it would be a useful contribution to the urban planning. Of course, we have experts on urban planning. Jerry is there, then other people are there. I think Professor Das could be there, Professor other people could be there. I am just a small person. I just made a small attempt to bring in such kind of issues, because I strongly believe this place must be livable. Where the place where we live, it must be livable. Now, the citizens must breathe freely, good air, clean air. They have a right to have a good transportation system. They have a right to have a good kind of a traffic regulation. They have a right to have a good water resources. They have a right to understand the water waste, solid waste management is effective. They have a right to see that, they are not flooded during the heavy rains, because we should not be mindless growth. We should not be aiming at mindless building. High-rise building it's not a solution. It's not a solution to our living standards. So one has to think a lot of things. And that classic debate is always there, whether you want to go for economic growth or whether you want sustainable development for your citizens. Growth versus development. One is quantified, one is qualitative. What kind of life you want? Quality life, or you want only... See, despite good GDP growth, it is not necessary that it will guarantee access to good infrastructure, access to good life to the citizens. So there are a lot of issues beyond GDP. There are issues like entitlements. There are issues like rights. There are issues like access to various resources. So a lot of things are there. So I think this is a small attempt by us to create some kind of an awareness, to make fellow academicians to rise and think about it positively and bring it a lot of issues. This is a small attempt. I know there could be many more issues which we have not been able to cover in a limited time. But I wish that, and I am personally believe that we should be focusing on such kind of issues and highlight what is important for the urban planning. and urban, and how do we manage our cities, make it more livable, cleanable, and try to address the 2030 agenda, that is sustainable development goals, in terms of economic standard, reducing poverty, making good place to live, gender disparity should not be there. I think in a smart city does not mean that inclusivity should be there. Diversity must be encouraged. So all these issues will be integrated. So in this book, we have not been able to address this, because it's not possible to address the entire range of issues in one attempt. This is a small attempt, and I think if people take cue from this and write more books, write more research papers on this, I'll be very, very happy. And that, I think, job is done. The job is not yet done. It's still an agenda to be, still an agenda, unfinished agenda. So I request those who are present here, think about it. And of course, my colleague, Dr. Robert also is here. We will be happy to respond to any query or something like that. And shortly, it will be launched on 24th July. It is not yet officially released. It will be officially released on 24th July. But since Randhir said, sir, can you join? I said, okay, why not? No, so far, I didn't know actually. He just picked up randomly and said, can you join us on 21st July? I didn't know him also. So I said, okay, why not? If for a good cause, I'm always there. We are all there to, to do something good for the society. That is what we are for here. So thank you very much, Randhir. I suppose you're giving me that platform to speak. And
yes,
of course,
thank you.
I can request Dr. Robert if you can contribute something else, if I have left
Definitely.
something.
Yes. First of all, thank you very much for the invitation, Professor Biswas, and all of participants. I would like to really be thankful for the book, which is a joint effort of almost 20 people. Together with Professor Biswas, we edited this book and make it shaped to the way it is. Professor Biswas covered all the required things, so I wouldn't like to keep my speech too long. So just wanted to say thank you and say exactly that. Pointed out that more and more people are going to the cities, and the cities are getting more attention today, especially governments, to become a smart cities and resilient cities. So this is the issue, because not only in Asia and Europe, because as Professor Biswas mentioned, we just covered several cities in Asia and Europe, but we have a lot of also cities and other places, especially in Africa, which are growing very, very fast and big. So I think this is, as Professor said, is a good starting point for the new researchers regarding the smart cities, especially in Europe right now, which we talk not only about the smart cities, but smart cities, 15-minute cities. So this is something what is a new concept of having everything done what is required for the citizen to get it just in the 15 minutes walk to get a majority of the important stuff. I don't know if it's still possible, but this is the concept in Europe right now, and is tested. So thank you very much, and I give the floor to the professor. So I'm really glad to be here, and as Professor said, on the 24th we have the another conference organized by jointly with Professor Biswas by Warsaw School of Economics. So those of you who want to participate, is just 1 hour conference, so it's not a big conference, but it will be opportunity to maybe hear and ask a question to the contributors. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Robert, and thank you, Professor Biswas, for a deep thought. And your thought and your deliberation is a kind of invitation for all of us to understand the quest for city planning, because we live in a time where urbanization has become the hallmark of development, and one question of development of global south, which is coming and that has a deep connection with the process of city building and all. So now I request Professor Jeru Anthony to share some of his reflections on the deliberation by Professor Biswas. I request Anthony to please mute it. Yes.
Hi, good evening, Professor Randhir. Thank you very much for inviting me for this. I'm very grateful to Professor Biswas and Professor Daigas for their book. I haven't read the book, so I speak from a point of ignorance on the contents of the book, and for good reason. It has not been published yet, right? Released yet, so I haven't read the book. Now, the topic is really, really important, very germane, very salient, and this book comes at a very, very appropriate time. And there are many reasons for this. First, cities are where a lot of the population is living in the world. And for the first time in 2012 or 2013, humankind, for the first time in history, became primarily an urban race for the first time. That is, more than 50% of human beings started living in cities. The rate of urbanization has really picked up, and a lot of this urbanization is happening in developing countries such as India, Nigeria, Philippines, Indonesia, many African countries. That's where this urbanization is happening. So we are living at this point in time, people in the world alive today are living through a major rural to urban shift. And we are primarily living through this shift when humankind is changing from being rural dwellers primarily to becoming urban dwellers. So it's a very, very important time in human history, I think. Second, cities they have lots of problems, right? Cities have traffic congestion issues, they have housing issues. Cities can have huge negative impacts in the environment and so on and so forth. But what we have to understand is that cities are vehicles of economic growth across time and space. There is a huge correlation between urbanization, correlation, not causality, urbanization and per capita income, or per capita GDP. Most of the economic activity in a country happens in cities. Even though many countries are quote unquote rural, a lot of so-called rural countries also, or agricultural countries also, agriculture is not 70, 80 or 100% of their economy. In fact, my state, I live in the state of Iowa in the US, and we are, as a state, we produce one of the highest amounts of soybean and corn and meat in the US. And a lot of what we produce is sent to China and different parts of the world. And a lot of land is actually devoted to agriculture in my state of Iowa. But in spite of all the export that happens of meat and corn and soybean to many countries in the world, in our state GDP, agriculture accounts for only 11% of the state's GDP. So similar is the case in many other countries where lots of land is actually devoted to agriculture, but agriculture is not the dominant driver of the economy. It's actually cities. Cities where industries are, cities where service sector happens, and cities are also opportunities where there's lots of there's lots of labor, there's a huge market. So cities are drivers of countries' economies. So even though cities have certain disadvantages, cities are absolutely essential for economic growth, and more urbanization, generally better economic growth, more economic growth generally happens. Now that said, cities are really poised to either make or break our existence on this planet, and here's why. If cities develop how they have been developed in the past, particularly as they've been developed in my country, the United States, then cities in the United States have very high per capita energy use. There's a high use of land. Per capita land is very high in the US. Per capita roadway is very high in the US. All of those are very bad for the environment. They will lead to global warming, increased global warming, and they will lead to irreversible climate change and global warming. If cities of the global south emulate the US model, then not only the cities of the global south, not only those global south countries, but in the entire world is doomed. Cities can be the vehicles of combating global climate change. And the reason is this. Cities bring together a large number of people and a large number of people come from diverse backgrounds, It brings together a large number of innovative people, creative people. Most of the inventions that we have today happen in cities. They didn't happen in rural areas, because when you have people coming together with different ideas from different countries, different regions, you can combine all of them and do something innovative. So cities are the melting pots, but they're also the innovation chambers, the laboratories of innovation. So a lot of innovation can happen in cities. And once innovation happens, cities can be adopted very fastly and very fast in cities and implemented very quickly in cities. So cities can become, say, for example, high density places where there's very little per capita road, where you have transit, say a light rail or mass transit as a mechanism that can be used to move people with very low carbon footprint. And that opportunity to do that is right now. As Professor Daigas pointed out, there's a lot of urbanization happening right now. And this urbanization, if done correctly, will lead us to sustainable cities, will lead us to a sustainable future, will prevent us from irreversible climate change and global warming. So that's my general thrust for why this topic is so germane, the topic is so salient and needs a lot of attention, policy attention. Second, I see a difference between smart cities and sustainable cities. Smart cities can be sustainable, but a lot of what passes for smart cities, at least some of the cities that I've looked at, is making cities more tech-oriented. For example, say Singapore. Singapore has dynamic congestion pricing, and that is one aspect of their smartness. Okay, so whether that makes the cities more sustainable or not is up for debate. So many cities, I think even in India, that are focusing on the smart city concept. There might be some things that in their definition of smart city is sustainable as well, but I'm not sure that the two terms, smart city and sustainable cities, are interchangeable. Cities can be sustainable without being smart, in the sense that many cities are interpreting smartness. Okay. The third thing I wanted to say was, yes, there are these many cities that are doing innovative things, but one of the things that keeps puzzling me, and I want some more research to happen on this, is why aren't these innovations happening in smart cities not being copied and implemented in many other cities in the world? For example, as Professor Biswas mentioned, the case of Indore, that has got this best cleanest city in India for the last 6 years, and I'm pretty positive it's going to keep getting that for the next 3 or 4 years. At least, because I've spent a lot of time in Indore earlier this year, talking to the administrators, talking to the senior administrators who actually started the solid waste management program in Indore. And the program is amazing. It is truly world class. It is the solid waste management of Indore is better than precisely 100% of US cities. Okay, the way Indore manages the solid waste is better than 100% of US cities. And what puzzles me is that why no other city in the state of Madhya Pradesh comes even close to Indore on that. There's Gwalior, there's Bhopal, there are so many other cities. None of them come even 30 to 40% of the way as Indore has done. They're within the same state with the same kind of resources. Comes down to politics, comes down to administrative will, comes down to people's support for this. So even though we have these exemplars, translating the successes of these exemplars to other cities, even in similar political, geographic, administrative contexts, has proven to be very challenging. And I think more research needs to be done on those things in the near future. Well, I think I should stop. My comments are supposed to be very brief. I think I'll stop now, and we'll open up the floor for questions. And maybe Randhir is going to moderate the Q&A, or I'm happy to do it as well. Yeah.
Thank you, Professor Anthony, for a deep observation. And now I request Professor Gyan Luigi Segelba from Italy to share some of his reflections.
Yes, thank you very much. I hope I am audible.
Yes.
Thank you very much. It was very interesting. I unfortunately do not know so much about the actual conception of smart cities, but if I am not mistaken, of course I can be mistaken, some concepts which are now developed in the conception of smart cities, like inclusion and participation of citizens, are in a certain sense anticipating some writings and in the works of Le Corbusier. This I am thinking in this moment particularly at the concept of the unity of habitation of Marseille, of the skyscraper in Marseille, and on what Le Corbusier wrote in order to anticipate the project of Marseille, and also on what on the plans which were at the basis of the project of Chandigarh, when Le Corbusier was charged with development, the planning of the capital of Punjab. And I was thinking while hearing at your very brilliant observations and expositions at some concepts of Le Corbusier, which I have unfortunately not now under my eyes, so to speak, because I have not the books of Le Corbusier here, but I can remember that there are at least some analogies between what you have been saying, and if I provided that I have understood correctly what is the meaning of your excellent contributions and what Le Corbusier wrote in some of his writings. So this is what I wanted to participate to the audience, and of course I thank you very much, because it was really very interesting, and I will inform myself better about the modern contemporary concept of smart cities. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Gyan. I request Professor Mala Shankar Das to share some of her reflections.
Thank you very much, Dr. Randhir. I'm very interested in this topic, not because it relates to the new thoughts on sustainability and also making cities and locations very friendly to people. One thing which comes to my mind is, since I'm a gerontologist, I work on older people's issues. In many cities, what we have is inclusion of age-friendly environments. And that is becoming part of the concept of smart cities too. And especially when we are finding that the population of older people is increasing in urban areas, and we are finding more and more people living longer. The concept of smart cities, for it to remain sustainable, it must cater to the needs of all segments of the population. And in some of the countries, like in Singapore, in China, in Japan, where we are finding examples of smart cities, we are also finding initiatives which have been taken to make these cities very age-friendly. So I have liked the presentations and the comments, and I congratulate the editors of this book for the good initiative they have taken and bringing to public some very critical and pertinent issues related to sustainable smart city projects. And yes, Indore is a very good example. And we are very proud that it's one of the places which has done very well in the amongst the Indian cities. And while we are developing initiatives on this in few other cities too, but what we are also needing in our conceptualization and in our perspectives is this inclusion of age-friendly enabling environments in cities. And I hope both the editors would agree with me that this is a very important aspect too, to be included. And since I work on this area, I feel very enthusiastic about bringing this perspective. So once again, congratulations. And I also congratulate Randeep for thinking of this topic and bringing us all together to deliberate on it. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Mala Sathildas, for a very insightful suggestions and comments. Now I request Dr. Sipra Sagarika to share some of her reflections.
Very good evening to all of you. Thank you, Randeep ji, and I must congratulate all the speakers for making us understand the nitty-gritties of smart cities and sustainable cities. I'm basically a sociologist who is working on different dimensions of urban sociology as well. And what makes me surprised is actually the cosmopolitan characteristics of these cities, which is trying to melt all kinds of hierarchies. Since I'm from India, we have seen India has got its own characteristics into several kinds of caste hierarchies and other kinds of hierarchies, which are very well, contended into its characteristics. But when it comes to the city life and when it comes to the lifestyle which the city dwellers carry, we see there is a melting point of these hierarchies. Of course, class hierarchies still continue, but many of the caste hierarchies do melt. So I would like any one of you to give some comments on this kind of a new society which has been developing in city life. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Sipra. Now I request any of our respected participants. I have also one or two comments. We have a very bitter experience of urban planning, particularly in the context of Gurugram or Gurgaon. And I want to underline the question of degrowth in the context of sustainable planning. I have been visiting some of the cities. I went to Varanasi in last time. And I was very unhappy to see the kind of infrastructure growth. They are just, if you go to nearby the Ganga Ghat, the infrastructure also below the Ganga river. So people are, we are becoming so obsessed with the idea of infrastructure growth. We want to convert Banaras as a gali ka shahar to like very Western cities like Singapore and all. So there is a question of protest also. There is a question of right to city also. We have seen a kind of demonstration of thousand people, particularly those who live in slum in Varanasi or in Delhi. There are a kind of huge and Indian cities, particularly middle class people, they do not like to see slum in their cities. Although they are getting a kind of domestic work to service work, they get from the cities. So the second question is question of right to city. And there we can see the kind of contestation between democracy and development. So is there any way of, because why they are just developing Delhi and NCR region? not other regions. So there is a question of concentration of wealth also, and that concentration of wealth led a kind of violence in city. And how do we see that future planning? You know, are we taking any lessons from Gurgaon or NCR regions? And we have seen in right now, you can see the pathetic situation after this flood. And there is a, crores and crore rupees we have lost because of this climate crisis. I would say the man-made crisis. And we have experience also in Chennai. And we always try to replicate, after the flood, again, the real estate will make the infrastructure and they will do the same pattern of thing, So whether any legal activism, we can see any future legal activism by the civil society activists in order to avoid that crisis. So I think we have a good discussion, but I would request Professor Biswas and Anthony to also share some of his reflections on this question of the contestation between democracy and development and democracy and involvement. Miniti Pradhan is also there. I request Miniti Pradhan to share one reflection.
Yeah, thank you, sister. Thank you so much. First, I would like to thank all the speakers. It was a privilege to learn from all the experts about the urban planning. Am I audible?
Yes, yes.
So I had one, I was a curiosity, like a different type of question, a query. Like, when the modern cities are planned, whether any inspiration is taken from the ancient cities or from history. Of course, the technology need and all are different, but can we learn from the history and ancient cities and make our things better? That was my query. Thank you.
I request Professor Biswas to help us with these queries.
Well, it's very interesting discussion, different dimensions. It's nice. And one of the issues which is important in urban planning is very interesting. I'm very happy that Jerry has spent some time in central India. He has been in Indore and he has seen Gwalior and all that. What is the differentiator between Indore and, say, for example, Gwalior or other cities of Madhya Pradesh? So something to do with the public policy, something to do with the governance. And I think citizen-friendly movements. Say, for example, I know, Randhi, you talked about movements by the civil society. I think right to the cities, and all kind of things. I think a lot of issues we don't have to be blindly following West or blindly following, there is a merit in when Professor Jerry said, sustainable city versus smart city, because smartness does not mean that we are achieving the sustainable city is a much broader concept. Smart city can be one of the factors in contributing towards sustainable city in terms of access to various kind of things to make it livable. Say, for example, smart city Indore had a good solid waste management system, for example, or water management system for water consumption, for example. They have taken care, and that's why it is not getting cluttered as it happened in Delhi or Gurgaon. Gurgaon is a perfect example of what is bad urban planning. Or for that matter, now look at what is happening to Bangalore. People are not talking about Bangalore, but Bangalore is equally bad. Once upon a time, it used to be called as a garden city, beautiful city, nice city to live, retired life, but Bangalore has become, look at the traffic congestion in Bangalore, mindless traffic congestion. It is terrible. If you go to, and in Bangalore, the citizens don't measure the distance by kilometer. They measure the distance by time, how much time I'll take to reach a particular place. So things have become bad. It is absolutely something to do with the political will. Now, what kind of governance structure we have? Are we concerned only investing on infrastructure? Or are you concerned about mitigating the effects of climate change, global warming, as Jerry has pointed out. I think these are the kind of issues we have to, infrastructure is not a bad word. Like, it's not a bad word, but infrastructure also are required. But what kind of infrastructure we are investing in? That is very important. So prioritization of the infrastructure for leading to a sustainable city is more important and crucial than what we are thinking. Because if you look at the global warming or the climate change, can you make climate resilient cities or climate resilient towns or villages? And most vulnerable people are these kind of people, rural areas and other kind of areas. Now, coping mechanism is poor there. So it is something to do with the urban planning. It's not only we are talking about smart cities or sustainable cities. What is our planning? What is our government? And also whether we have adequate such people who implement, are they trained? Are they sensitive? No, are they mindless development infrastructure and all that, it is not. Say, for example, the architect of the Bhopal city, Mr. Eminent, who said that there is no need of high-rising building in Bhopal. Bhopal is so beautiful, so much spatial distribution, so beautiful. But I think people are going for creating the planning. Our urban planners, like somebody, I think Shipra talked about urban sociology. What kind of, and somebody talked about inclusivity. I think Mala talked about inclusivity. I think these are also important issues. We have to take into these things into consideration while planning. So what is important is that what are your planning concepts? Are you keeping people in focus, or are you keeping only infrastructure in focus? Or see a link between them for a sustainable life and lessening the of climate change or global warming. So these are the kind of issues the urban planners, even I think there is a need to educate our legislators. I think there is a need to educate our parliamentarians who are the people's representative. I think long back, when I was in IFM, I had suggested, I think the environmental education should be a compulsory subject right from the school level. And unfortunately, you will believe it or not, environmental education is given, not even given it's due even the right kind of education platform. We are not making people aware. No, who is government? We are part of the government. So the citizens also have a greater role. Civil society have a greater role. I think there has to be space for civil societies, government organizations, and private is not a bad word, by the way, because private organizations can invest quite a bit. And then, of course, government. There has to be a perfect alliance between government, private agencies, non-government agencies, and civil society. And, of course, citizen groups. I think it is not only government. No, it is not only government. That is what we have to understand first. And as example given by Jerry, indoor, if you ask a common citizen, when I went to a medical, I asked, listen, refused to give me medicine in a polythene or something. He said, sir, paper pack hai, or you bring your own bag to take anything, whatever you want to take from this. So that kind of awareness which has been created, it takes time. It takes time. And these are not, we don't provide overnight solutions. Like I saw that some of the comments that India had in our early civilization, we had a fantastic water disposal system and water. Yes, we did. But over a period of time, we have destroyed all these things. So who is responsible? We are responsible. We are part of the government. We are responsible. Are we able to create that kind of a movement? And are you able to create that kind of a awareness so that we head towards the right kind of thing, as rightly said, sustainable cities? So that is important. Sustainable cities, sustainable places to live. So those are the kind of issues. I think something to do with our policy, something to do with our planning, something to do with our governance. These three are key words. These three are important to focus. If you can focus and rectify certain basic things in policy, governance, and execution, I think that is, and planning. Planning, of course, is a part of it. Is the primary thing. So that is what one has to focus. As Randir asked me to say, what are my comments? I think these are the key issues on which we should be focused. So this book is only a kind of a curtain raiser. Abhi to picture baki hai. I mean, in Hindi, like this is the introduction. And abhi to, there are a lot of things are pending, so we have to do that. So this is my comment, Randir. Thank you.
Now, Final word from Dr. Jerry Anthony.
Yeah, just to add on to what Professor Biswas said, a lot of infrastructure development is happening, and it's very tempting for administrators and politicians to focus on infrastructure development without necessarily paying attention to what kind of infrastructure development.
Yes.
One of the things that I see in India right now is that there's a lot of road building going on, and building roads is good. But, when the city is expanding, now is the time to lay down the infrastructure for a very robust public transportation system. A public transportation system that even middle class and upper middle class use is absolutely critical in Indian cities to control the level of pollution and climate change and global warming. And if Indian cities are just developing roads and roads everywhere, then the skeleton of the city is being laid in such a way that will ensure that the city will not be sustainable at all. And so rather than administrators being very happy, politicians being very happy, making lots and lots of 1,000 kilometers of road per day, that's 1,000 kilometers of a fast drive to global warming and global destruction, actually. We should stop. Roads are necessary. Okay, we need to be, but we need to be very, very judicious and cautious in how they're getting developed. We need to put in place a structure, a skeleton of the city that is transit oriented and will attract and enable middle and upper class people also to take that transportation system. So that's the one thing that I would say. So in other words, what kind of infrastructure is very, very crucial, and no one is paying attention to that in India right now, and it needs a lot of attention, both especially among politicians and administrators. A couple of things, other things that had come up in questions. Someone had mentioned this city as a melting pot where these caste structures are going away. And yes, it is interesting that those caste structures are going away. Class structures still remain. Caste structures are going away. And this is something that many, many years ago, 100 years ago, the socialist Emil Durkheim had said, right? That this anonymity that is there in cities is actually liberating. You come away from the caste structures of a village and you come to a city where the social dynamic is different. It liberates these people who have just come from the city and enables them to really move forward, progress forward. So that is very, very good. That said, as I was, in my trips, I was talking to different planners, and I was sitting down and talking to one of the planners in Indore, and he said, some of the problems that we have in urban areas is that even though we, it's good to have people coming from rural areas, sometimes people coming from rural areas, their mindset about how to behave in an urban space, and there's nothing to do with caste or class. It is across caste and class. That mindset needs to be cultivated and encouraged. So and he gave me a very good example. He said that day, the day we were talking, he said that day he was coming to work and he saw this guy who seemed to be from a rural area who had come to Indore, standing in the middle of the road and talking to someone on a cell phone. Traffic is going all around him, and this guy is standing in the middle of the road and talking to people. Like he had a scooter or something, and he had stopped the scooter in the middle of the road. And he finally concluded, this town planner finally concluded that after weighing all the options, the town planner concluded that the reason why this guy was standing in the middle of the road was he was trying to tell his friend where to locate him. His friend was looking for him and he said, I'll be in the middle of the road, so look for me. And he's standing there. So he said, this kind of mindset, where you get people coming from the village who are standing in the middle of the road so someone else can see them, well, that mindset has to change. That is when we'll become a true, urban spaces in India will become a true melting pot and will take society forward. So I think I've gone on for too long. Back to you, Randhir.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Professor Anthony. Now, I request for all of you to join our coming dialogues of GSDS Forum. And on behalf of GSDS Forum, we feel very grateful for a deep presentation by all of you and your kind participation. Professor I am very grateful to personally Professor P.K. Biswas, Dr. Sipra, Professor Anthony, Professor Mohanty, Professor Malasankar Biswas, MD Chandar Saha, Professor Gyan Gloi. Thank you so much. And Professor Robert also. And congratulations for your great event, which is coming on 24th. We look forward for your kind participation in our coming dialogue also. And we all will join that event. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.